And our next speaker is Sabrina Fink.
Hello, class of 2009. My name is actually Sabrina Coleman, and it's a pleasure and an honor to be here addressing my fellow graduates. This is a class that truly appreciates the importance of education. We have endured years of balancing school and work and family, all while trying to keep our cool. Although it wasn't easy, it was worth it. Audrey Hepburn once said, "A quality education has the power to transform societies in a single generation. Provide children with the protection they need from the hazards of poverty, labor exploitation, and disease, and give them the knowledge, skills, and confidence to reach their full potential." As many of you know, Ms. Hepburn was a Hollywood starlet, starring in famous classics like Funny Face, Breakfast at Tiffany's, My Fair Lady, and of course, my favorite, the 1954 version of Sabrina. These movies made her famous, but she remains most famous to me for her work with UNICEF, her selflessness, and the compassion she showed even when the cameras were actually turned off. She gave up most of her life to help those who were unable to help themselves. Although she died of cancer when I was only 12, she is a major motivational force in my life, and therefore a reason I stand here today. In April of 2007, I walked through the front doors of the University of Phoenix office, located right here in Springfield. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. The first person I encountered was a newly employed enrollment counselor by the name of Josh Hammons. I'm not sure he knew what to make of me, because that day I was one very driven girl. I'm sure that much of his job description entails motivating people to continue their education, but I was already gung-ho about it. I just wanted to get a feel for the University of Phoenix and see if it was the right fit for me. Being new, he may not have known all the answers to some of my questions, but he did have one famous tagline that he used. It went like, "This is still a learning experience for me, so let's just figure this out together." Although Josh seemed to struggle with the newness of his position, he kept his cool and not alone was impressive. His parting words to me after my questions were answered that day were, "Sabrina, even if you don't join us here at the University of Phoenix, please go back to school. You have your head on straight, and the world needs people like you." I'm proud to say that I'm graduating with my master's in education, and I owe it in part to a complete stranger named Josh, who became my enrollment counselor. I have realized recently that I have encountered many strangers throughout my life. Many of them have heard stories of my life of being a cancer survivor and an amputee, and I've listened to many of theirs. One stranger changed the course of my life during a lunch we shared in an airport. At the time, I was working as a traveling sales consultant and model for a prosthetic foot company. I was on my way back to Los Angeles and had a 4-hour layover in Chicago. I had taken a seat by myself in a Mexican food restaurant. I placed my order with the waitress, and I proceeded to people watch. My gaze fell upon a lady who was close to the same age as I and was also sitting alone. Knowing how boring it could be to eat by yourself, I asked if she would join me, and she did. Without even exchanging names, we proceeded to tell our stories to each other and eat our lunch. She was coming back to the United States for 6 months so that she could keep her citizenship. She had just spent the last 2 years in Brazil teaching at a remote school for underprivileged students. She was so happy with life and spoke about the rewarding experience that it was. And at the end of the meal, we shook hands and I never saw her again. Her story is one that I have never forgotten and inspired me to do more in life and to strive to become a better person. Like many of you, I have numerous role models. Each of them is different in their own way, but help cover the many facets of my life. They have become the voices that have inadvertently influenced me to become the person I am today. And so today is a day for me to honor those individuals, because without them, I wouldn't be here. The two most influential people, even though we haven't always seen eye to eye, are my mother and father. After 34 years of marriage, 29 years of being parents, and all the bumps and bruises along the way, they are still my best friends. And to this day, have never stopped pushing me to do more. I would like to acknowledge a few others that have walked with me on my path of life. My grandmother, who has never stopped being proud of me. My aunts and uncles, who always seem to make me laugh. My prosthetist, Bill Conklin, who inspired me to do all things that I wanted to, regardless of being an amputee. Mrs. Gans, yes, she was ginormous, but she was my junior high gym teacher. She took time out of her personal schedule just to teach me how to run again. Mr. Rankin, my junior high science teacher, who stepped outside the box of books and lectures to give me hands-on learning experiences. Mrs. Peterson, my high school math teacher, who told me since I wasn't paying attention to her, I should just teach the class. The lady in the airport that told me she was teaching down in Brazil, Josh Hammons for selling me on the University of Phoenix, Jeremy Henson for understanding that my studying is sometimes more important than a social life, and for his gracious attempts to help me better myself. And lastly, to all my friends, my old friends, for forgetting that I'm an amputee, and all my new friends for accepting me regardless. Each of us could stand up here today and spout off all the things that make us great. But it's truly all the people we surround ourselves with that make us who we are. I mentioned a teacher by the name of Mrs. Peterson. She was the one that planted the seed, the start of all my wants and desires of becoming a teacher. Like I said before, I had lost interest in her class, but not out of hatred for the class. It was more to do with teenage distraction. I was so consumed by the other students that I had lost track of what was important. One day, she finally got so fed up with all of her students' loss of interest that she started to schedule each of us to teach the class. Sometimes respect comes from being in another person's shoes. It wasn't easy being up in front of my peers and telling them how to complete an equation. Luckily, even in her frustration, Mrs. Peterson didn't throw us to the wolves. She took extra time the day before to go over the next day lesson with whoever was teaching it. Through a change of teaching to one-on-one help and guidance to solving our own problems, she transformed my entire 10th grade math class into respectable teenagers. I enrolled in her math class every year after that. I didn't find out until later on in my life that she had recommended me for a teen leadership program the summer after my senior year. Her faith in my abilities as a leader was far above my own faith, and it set the bar for me. Everyone in this audience will at some point become a teacher, just by sharing his or her knowledge with a peer, a coworker, or even a child. We learn from each other through every massive amount of influence due to social interactions of every single day. When you think about that, that is a massive amount of influence, both on and from people around us. My hope for this speech today is that I might be able to say the right words to inspire each of you to inspire yourselves and the communities that surround you. Through the use of your education and influence on others, do good things for the world as you strive to better yourself. Surround yourself with fantastic people, but also introduce yourself to a few strangers. Life is made up of so many characters with so many stories. Become a person who shares your story along with listening to someone else's. You never know, the story from a stranger may change your path in life. Congratulations to all who are graduating today. Throughout life, there are beginnings and endings, and today is a new beginning for your life. Make this one the best one yet.